All right, so it seems like the thingy is going over here and starting, so let's go ahead and kick it off. So, hello everybody, Vegas X here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And yes, for today, we get to go over and discuss about, or I get to, with all y'all, episode 4 of WandaVision though. And man, I gotta say, man, some people were worried about this show though. But I always knew them little tidbits and them little hints. I've been discussing it within the past 3 episodes though. I knew it was gonna boil down to something though. But to think that we're gonna start to get the picture to sort of conform within episode 4, whole freaking shoot. And it was just the way how they executed the mess. We got to see, some appearances from older characters. We got to see from past movies. We got 3 main primary characters from 3 different past movies and series. Honestly, I did not. I knew a couple of them based on the previews and stuff, but the other 2, I was like, whoa, freaking shoot! They kind of kept it under wraps, and I was like, all right, I see you, Marvel. I see you, Marvel, though. So it was really nice to see some older characters returning to the forefront like this. And oh shoot, the theories that I sort of gonna have with Wanda and the whole town of Westview like this, I was like, oh freaking shoot! Like now my head's on the swivel because I think I was partially right, but then again I'm thinking I was like a little bit off. So I'm like, okay, now I gotta have to kind of put some things together and try to figure out exactly what's going on though. But there's quite a bit of stuff to talk about in this episode though. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive straight up into this episode review for WandaVision episode 4. Alrighty, so whole freaking shoot. Alright, so here we go. I'm gonna have to rewind it back a few little slides over here though, so bear with me though. But as I'm going through and rewinding it though, we get to see right here at the very beginning. We start off right here at the beginning of the snap. It's at this moment in the episode, at the very beginning, we finally figure out exactly where we are actually at within this timeline, so to say, for WandaVision. Because essentially we have this girl right here. At first, we quite don't, know exactly who this character is. But we do find out shortly a little bit later though. But when you see that dust and stuff, this is around the snap. Now we the character is coming together, so we know that this is essentially where the Hulk basically snapped and brought everybody else back to life. So we know officially now that in terms of the timeline, this happens after the events of Avengers Endgame. So this is where we at in the storyline. So it's probably like roughly about like a month after the snap though. Once we get past this little first initial scene though, but it is good to know exactly where we're at within this timeline though. So we got to see this woman kind of coming out, running through the hallway. She happens to be brought back after the blimp. Remember, they called this thing the blimp, and we got to see that within Spider-Man Homecoming or Far Away From Home. They called it the blimp for all those people that disappeared for so many oddball years. But she's kind of in a state of shock, doesn't understand exactly what's going on, manages to run into another nurse, and they're like, wait, like, where's my mother at? But then she's like, your mother died like a couple years ago. And that was just a big shock, and she was just trying to come to the ramifications of all of that. Fast forward a little bit later, we get to see a brand new facility called Sword Headquarters. Notice how, you're seeing that Sword Scientific Weapon Observation Response Division. It's sort of kind of similar with the whole acronym to SHIELD, 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 but this is a little bit different. And notice right here, you can see right there in the center, that symbol of a sword. Where did we see that symbol before? Yes, we've seen that before within like the first couple of episodes of WandaVision. And remember, there was like this little helicopter that had that symbol on it. Remember, there was this woman that had that symbol on it. those things I'm going to discuss a little later within this review. That things that were some very critical moments within within those episodes that play a greater role within this episode though. So we fast forward a little bit though, and I got to pause again right here because we actually managed looking at this picture and then putting two and two together. That woman right there is the co-founder, or not the co-founder, but the founder of this organization as a whole. And if you actually look at her, she is familiar, and she was from one movie. Yes, this woman right here in this picture is the same woman that was basically Captain Marvel's friend, you know, back within that movie, way back in the 70s timeline. She's the woman that basically built up this organization from the ground up. And guess who her daughter is? Yes, that is none other than this woman that we get to see right over here that we saw at the very beginning of this episode though. So honestly, that was just a really interesting fact right there. Just, you know, seeing her daughter basically be brought back up. But some of y'all might be thinking, wait a minute, hold on here. Like where is that lady from? And I'm like, well, you know what? I can actually show y'all a quick little picture of this because Captain Rambeau, this was her on the left back in Captain Marvel. This is her on the right from WandaVision that we're seeing right now. This is the same little girl that was basically the daughter of the founder of S.W.O.R.D. And just knowing that in itself, whole freaking shoot. Like I just like little things like that. I just love the continuity that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has. And I was like, gosh, like all these things are just coming together though. So I just really love that little moment right there though. But then if we were to go back and look at, you know, the rest of, you know, what's been going on. So we, you know, we got past the blimp and all of that stuff. And the next thing is we get to see her talking to this man over here, which is basically the dude that they sort of kind of left in charge for at the moment after, you know, her mother passed away. She basically said, you're grounded though. But we do have a little mission that you can essentially do for the time being. And it's a situation that sort of kind of rose with the FBI. And she was like, you know what, put me back in action, even though I'm kind of grounded right now on behalf of what my mother said and like her, you know, final wishes for me. At least she thought that she was going to come back someday though. But she has to go over here and investigate one case with the FBI for Westview. So she goes over here, arrives at this little old town though. But guess who she manages to see over here? Yes, it is none other than Wu. Now some of y'all might be thinking, wait, where is Wu from? Oh, I'll show you where Wu is from. Remember way back within Ant-Man and the Wasp, this dude was the dude that was trying to make sure that Ant-Man didn't leave his probation period after the events of what happened within Captain America Civil War. Like, you know, he was the main dude that we saw him kind of popping in and out, just trying to make sure that he wasn't leaving his place of, you know, leaving his home essentially though. We get to see him get brought over to WandaVision. This is our second character in terms of continuity that we get to see brought over here though. But if you go ahead and look over at the right side of the screen where we see him now, notice how he has that card look popped up. Some of y'all might have just thought of nothing about this whenever you say, you know what, I'm Wu from the FBI. No, that little card trick that he does right there, that was that same card trick that Scott was trying to that he kept pulling in front of me. He's like, how did you do that trick? And now he finally mastered that little trick. It's just little things like that, just little things like that just get me excited. And just, I just really love that continuity right there though. But it's going back to where we were at in the episode, the whole freaking shoot. So anyway, the reason why he's here at the moment is the matter of fact that he had a person within his witness protection program, and for some oddball reason they just up and disappeared. And he traced it all the way back to Westview, you know, asked a lot of different family members, do you know this person, you know, where they could possibly go to, but they didn't have no recollection in their memories of who that character or who that person was or where they possibly could be at, which was very interesting. And I don't know, but that's essentially how they started bringing some of the outsider people, or what I would call as outsiders, to the people that are living within Westview, and started getting them involved in this weird sort of kind of phenomenon that's taking over Westview right now. So one thing that they tried to test in order to see if they can actually manage to see what it looks like on the inside was they had this helicopter. Now pause right here, because that helicopter it's the same helicopter that we saw within WandaVision episode 2 when that episode took place in the 60s. That sucker was colored and everything else was black and white. We understand where this thing came from now and why that sword symbol is on there, because it's a product from Sword, and that's the reason why we saw that within that episode. They sent this little airplane in, or helicopter, should I say. They sent this little helicopter in there, and that's the reason why we saw that within that episode, though. So that was one little interesting piece that we got to see right there, though. But we got to see this little phenomenon right there, and then Captain Rambo was just standing right there in front of it. It was like, you know what? Like, like she basically put her hand on it, and then all of a sudden, boop, she was out of there. She was out of there, gone, and wasn't seen. And Wu was just left there standing there. At this point, there was a weird, crazy phenomenon with this place. Wu had to bring in the reinforcements. And obviously with Sword losing one of their members, they came over there to their area and set up their shop, though. So they needed to recruit some other people that might know something about crazy dimensional space. Remember the crazy, weird dimensional space that happened within Thor, the second movie, Thor the Dark World? Well, why not just recruit somebody that dealt with that kind of crazy stuff before? Because the third and final character that we got to see from a previous movie was none other than Dancy. She is originally from the Thor series, and you can go ahead and see an image right here. I'm popping up on the screen. This is Dancy on the left that we got to originally see her with Thor, and then you got to see her in Thor the Dark World. And then I'm trying to remember, I think we might have saw her a tad bit within the third movie of Thor, but it was only like towards the very beginning for Ragnarok, though, if we did see a little bit of her, though. But it's very interesting. As a matter of fact, they brought her back over there because, she kind of dealt with some of the weird sort of kind of, portals kind of leaping around, or, stuff that just dealt with some weird, crazy phenomenons. She was the kind of go-to girl that essentially kind of dealt with all of that, though. So it was very interesting to see her make a reappearance within the WandaVision series as well, though. So just kind of going through here, though, Sword essentially set up camp right outside of this weird phenomenon. And it was like right outside Westview right there. And essentially it was her, and at this point in the episode, it was really just her and Wu trying to kind of work together in order to try to figure out what's kind of going on in the inside of Westview at the moment, though. Her, along with, all the other people that are working within Sword, or / some of the other FBI agents that are around there, or the military sort of kind of personnel that they also have around the area as well, though. Now, one other thing that I got to point out is they were trying to explore. They knew that they couldn't go up above the surface and walk up in there because they already lost a member like that. So there's basically like a force field that's sort of kind of like a dome that covered over the area. So they say, you know what, we already sent somebody on foot, let's try going underground. So instead of, and then they decide, well, if we're going to go underground, let's go ahead and go underneath the sewer and see if we can manage to go by through there. We figured out, thanks to Dancy's work, that it was basically some type of radiation that was coming off of the force field. So with that, they were like, okay, let's throw this dude in a radioactive suit. Let's send him down in the sewers and let's get him into the city that way. So that was one approach that they tried to make contact with Westview. There was like a few different approaches they tried to contact them, though. But this was like their one in-person approach, besides obviously Captain Rambo, that actually went into Westview itself, though. Now, if we go on a little further in the episode, we just got to see them kind of walking through there, though. And we figured out that thanks to Dancy's work right there, that essentially there was some weird kind of radio-like waves that were coming from Westview. She was able to tap that into different older television monitors and was able to actually showcase off these episodes. Now, this is where things got a little bit weird, because it's like, okay, they actually got to see these, see what was happening in Westview in the same way that we were viewing the Westview in terms of these episodes. Episode 1, 2, and 3 that was placed in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s is what I called out within those episode reviews. And that was one really interesting thing I noticed with that. And it was like, okay, but it seemed like some of those episodes were technically on loop. So it's sort of kind of real time, sort of kind of not. But that's just basically all it's kind of able to pull out of that though. But essentially what they were saying is, all right, let's go ahead and gather all the information from all the different people, or you could also say characters, since it looks like they're watching a TV series, that are actually associated within Westview at the time of them seeing this and recording it all down. So they were just, going through different questions saying, why is the Westview city in the shape of a hexagon? Why is it related to the sitcom that we've been seeing this though? Is it warp space, or is it actually here still on Earth? They were just trying to all put this together though. And then one idea that Dancy actually thought of was the matter of fact of, hey, you know what? There's a radio actually in Wanda's kitchen, or there was also a radio right next to her in some other different place, which was like around that pool party-ish sort of kind of area though. And they were testing that out, and they're like, all right, let's go ahead and talk through the radio though. So this is why we got to hear during this moment of Wu saying, Wanda, can you come in? Wanda, who's putting you up to this? Wanda. And it was in that moment of episode 2 where she clenched that glass, or where the other lady clenched that glass and busted her hands, and then you got to see her hands kind of bleeding or whatnot though. And we got to see that little bit of, like her busting the glass, but them on the outside, they weren't able to actually see that one moment right there. It was super interesting just seeing that, and it almost seemed like Wanda was sort of kind of like, wait a minute, someone's trying to make contact from me from the outside, but this is odd, this is weird, this ain't supposed to happen. So she sort of kind of used her powers in such a way to where she wasn't being disturbed no more, and thus she just sort of kind of just skipped ahead in a moment in time. And then they were like, it seems like Wanda didn't fully pick up on that, and that was their attempt number 1 at it. So that was very interesting to see though. However, we also got to see a little bit later, this dude was still trying to go through the sewers and try to pop up within the city right there. And then this is the reason why we saw towards the end of what was of another episode, why they saw the beehive person right there though. So I was like, oh, okay, the beehive person. I was like, shoot. And I was like, okay, that's the reason why the beehive person was so important, because at first I was like, why in the world is a dude with a beehive just kind of popping through the sewers like that? And I was like, what the heck? But now it makes sense, because he had a radiation suit on to begin with. And instead, when they went into that Westview city, or town, should I say, once he entered that area, he turned into like a beehive suit that he was wearing, just because I guess it's a little more modern within the times that they're actually living in at the moment though. So that's the reason why that makes sense, and why that dude popped out of the sewer though. It was somebody originally working with SWORD to try to figure out what's going on inside of it. And then that's when Wanda said no. And then, whoop, I don't know what happened with that dude though, but maybe she also kicked that person out. I don't know. We didn't really get to see what happened to that dude after the fact though, but that was super interesting, kind of seeing exactly what was actually happening with that dude as well though, as we went down into the sewer system to try to find out what went down in that city though. Now, afterward, this is where things got super interesting, because we got to see Captain Rambeau. And this was that moment in the previous episode, in episode 3, where we got to see her say, who are you? Where are you from? Like, you're not originally from here. And remember what the neighbors were saying earlier. They were like, she didn't live here. She didn't have a home. She's not really a neighbor. Where does she even come from? This is where it's all coming full circle, because we do know that at this point that this woman essentially came from the outside, was originally working with SWORD, but she didn't have full recollection of her memories the second, I guess, she went up in there, because you would think if she had full recollection of her memories, she would have just gone straight to Wanda and said, hey, what is going on here? But she didn't. And it sort of kind of just slipped out that she knew Ultron killed Wanda's brother, and also Vision is technically dead. And it was those little red flags where Wanda was like, you know what? You are not welcome here. I don't know who you are, but you're not my neighbor. You're not my friend. And it's time for you to yeet. Literally yeet. And she just threw this woman clear out of the whole entire area though. Just literally used her powers to shot that woman straight out of Westview, straight back to the real world, or the outside world that we are at currently at the moment, though. And that explains why at the end of episode 3, why we saw her laying there like that at the very end, because Wanda basically shot her all the way out. So that was super crazy in itself, though. But something that literally gave me goosebumps right after that was the fact that when Vision came in and he was like, "Hey, honey, where did that woman go?" And Wanda was like, "Oh, she left. She had to hurry on home." And then she looked back at Vision and literally saw this man's dead corpse right there. Me seeing that the first time literally sent some goosebumps up my sent some goosebumps crawling up my skin, because I was like, what the freak? And then she freaked out for a moment, and then you still got to see him talking there. It's like, Wanda, are you all right? And then she looked back up again and then saw that he was all right. And I was like, whole freaking shoot. Like, now this is where the big theory sort of kind of speculation kind of comes in with what I'm originally thinking about here. Because honestly, I thought everything that was happening within Westview at the moment, within like the first 2 to 3 episodes, I honestly thought everything here was happening within Wanda's head, at least to a degree. But now we know that, yes, this is an actual physical place here on the Earth. There's the outside, right outside of where Westview normally would be at. And then you get some kind of weird sort of dimension where you see Wanda living within these certain episodes, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, probably the 80s within next week's episode. And there's a certain theme with it. It seems like you have all these different people, though. It, from the outside point perspective, it looks like a sitcom. Seems like a perfect, reality television show. Things just look odd, super odd to the outside view. And I was just literally thinking, I was like, okay, so this is sort of kind of in Wanda's head, but not really. Like, I think Wanda, to a degree, is controlling the environment. This is what I'm thinking. Using her powers to control the environment to play out a what-if scenario of how it would be if I was able to actually live with Vision peacefully and not have to worry about anything. Now, this is where I had to sort of kind of put my foot down, and I think I had some of my first criticisms with the show. Because at first, I was thinking somebody was putting her up to this, and thinking, oh, they're tapping in her mind, trying to keep her out of some kind of crazy situation or something like that, or just, trying to see exactly what was happening with her and trying to, mess with her mind or something like that. That's something I was originally thinking about, but it might not be that case, because it might be literally Wanda is playing a what if scenario in her head, and just because she lost Vision in the past, thanks to Thanos, she still sort of kind of in a crazy emotional state where she can't come to terms of Vision being killed off like that. And she created this whole entire zone, locked it out of the outside world, just to kind of live it like a fantasy, kind of like playing house or playing with dolls, like creating a made up space just to show and just basically live a whole what if scenario of what her life could be like with Vision, even though this man is already dead. Now that right there, I'm like, literally, like, I know Wanda is sort of kind of like a super emotional person. We got to see that within Avengers Age of Ultron, and we got to see, she doesn't deal with stress. She doesn't deal with anxiety that well. Even got to play over a little bit in the Civil War, and literally Vision was like one of those few and only people that really kind of helped her out of it. A little bit of Hawkeye too, though, but Vision was that main person that sort of kind of helped her out of it. And I think that's what caused Wanda to sort of kind of fall for him. And the reason why we got to see those two kind of live like their peaceful life between Civil War and what led up to almost the events of Avengers Infinity War, before they had to get, thrown into the war because, the world was at chaos against Thanos, and Thanos trying to collect all the Infinity Stones and stuff. So I know that she's an emotional person, but to think that she's the whole premise or the whole structure or foundation of the whole entire show is based upon her emotions and her not coming to terms with Vision being dead, it sort of kind of rubs me off the wrong way. Everything else about the episode and how they execute it, how they throw in the bits of lore, how they're bringing in other characters and stuff, excellent, marvelous though. But just the core foundation of what this what this series could be based upon, I don't know. That in itself is the one thing that's sort of kind of throwing me off though. But oh shoot. But outside of that, this was an amazing episode. I gotta look and see exactly what else they're gonna be able to put within the future episodes for this series though. But y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below what all did you think about this episode as a whole, and you know, what are your thoughts of what could actually be happening within this point forward, moving on within the series of WandaVision though. Y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below though. But I mean, shoot, I mean, and even Dawn's Journey, thanks for joining in over here though. He sort of kind of felt the same way, probably with the whole premise of what this series could be actually based upon right there. I mean, shoot, I just hope, honestly hope that, I really hope that, I feel like I hope there's something else that we don't know about. Like they want to make it seem like we know everything about exactly what it is. I feel like, oh shoot, I'm just trying to put it all into words. I feel like there might be one thing that we might not know about this series, and they want us to think that we know everything about it, but hit us with another twist like within this episode 4 and try to put everything all together like that. Because if they're able to pull that off, I'll be, super excited if they're able to pull this off successfully. But if not, I don't know. But we got to see though. But I really do love the work, how they've been sort of kind of mixing the sitcom along with everything else they've been trying to incorporate, because this is like the first episode that we got the heavy emphasis of what our traditional normal MCU formula, should I say, normally that we be getting over here though. But honestly, it was really good. And oh shoot, y'all just gotta let me know though. But yeah, I feel like this might not be solely what Wanda is doing. I feel like a good chunk of it is, but maybe there's something else that we don't know, and maybe this is going to tie into a future movie that we know, because we know this is some of the events in this series is supposed to tie into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which sort of kind of makes sense given if you know anything about Doctor Strange and some of the enemies he faces within the comics though. But I won't go too much into that. That could be potentially spoilery, but I'll just leave it at that though. But that's basically all I got to say within this episode review though. So if you really like this review, go ahead and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell in order to stay up to date on all things WandaVision that I feel like discussing, y'all. So remember, next week I'll be back here at it again at 10 p.m. Central Standard Time to go ahead and discuss over WandaVision episode 5. So remember, y'all, until whatever video I make next, see y'all.